The Wednesday Warmup.
Welcome back to the Wednesday Warmup. I'm Danielle Dubois alongside my co-host Millan Jane. Now we are going into week 14, so we'll give our week 14 predictions. But first of all, we want to recap a game from week 13. And I think you can obviously tell which one we're going to recap, the Steelers game, because they are officially not undefeated anymore. Millan, as a Steelers fan, what do you have to say?
No, I was finally excited to see this game go down, and I'm finally excited to see the Steelers get their first loss. Obviously, it was cool to chase perfection, but like Ben Roethlisberger said best, we're not chasing perfection. We're chasing Lombardis. Sorry, I can't say that word today. And we saw this one coming, Danielle. Like you've been saying, the Steelers have been getting by in these wins. They've barely been winning, and now you're finally playing a team with a good defense, a good pass rush, and we couldn't convert. On possession downs, we couldn't convert. We don't have a run game. We were saying Big Ben and the Steelers are going to be successful because Big Ben won't have a lot of pressure because our defense is so good. And Ben just needs to make the needed plays. Well, our defense is good. Let's not anything there. Defense is good, but we can't run the ball. So we're forcing Ben to throw 40, 50 times a game. Number one, which is not good for his already injured elbow. Number two, if we're not going to run the ball, everyone's just going to sit back in the zone, which Washington did perfectly. Sat back in that zone. Ben got the ball out quickly, but defense was already there. No one's rushing. And he just threw it into coverage. A lot of balls got chipped. He was lucky enough to get one interception. The drops, we got to get down. We have to fix that. Obviously, we had 7 drops against Baltimore. A little bit better with 5 drops. I think it's just learning how to catch the ball first and then go upfield. I think Ben needs to make a little bit of a better job putting his wide receivers in the position that he can catch the ball so they can catch the ball first and then worry about making the play. So there's a lot of stuff going into it. Obviously, Joe Hayden went down with an injury. Robert Spillane went down with an injury. Which is always tough to see injuries, guys. First game without Bud Dupree. So I think this was a good loss, finally figuring out, hey, we're not the best team in the world. It's okay. We have something to learn from. It's the first game, obviously, the first game without Bud Dupree. So we're all trying to figure out how we can play with each other. So I'm excited to see what this next week brings. Finally, we're going to get A.V. Williamson in these games because Spillane will miss a couple of weeks with injuries. So it'll be cool to see what we have for the rest of the year. I do think this was a reality check, but I don't think we're overrated or everything that everyone else has been saying.
And as you're kind of talking about how how it's predictable of that they're going to pass the ball, and you can't just continuously pass the ball because, like you said, like they'll obviously know what's going to happen, and they figured out very quickly that your run game is not on top of it. So they realized that most of your plays were going to be pass plays, and I think that's what kind of got hold of the Titans this past week too, because everyone knows the Titans like to run the ball because Derrick Henry, like, why not? You have Derrick Henry. I would run the ball if I were the coach and like you had Derrick Henry on your team. But I mean, the Browns figured it out very fast and figured out, okay, that's all they're going to do. We can stop them. What else are you going to do?
Exactly.
Moving into week 14, we're going to start us off with our Thursday night game. The 6-6 Patriots play the 8-4 Rams. This is going to be a really interesting game, I think, actually. The Patriots are 6-6 after last week's shutout win, an amazing win by the Patriots, 45-0. I have not seen that score in football ever. And if it has happened, it's been a long time since it's happened, at least. The Patriots are officially kicking into high gear. They know that their playoff chances are very slim, but they're still partially there. And you have to kind of rely on other teams and their upcoming schedules as well. And the Patriots realize they need to win every game going forward if they want to make the wild card spot at best. You have Bill Belichick. I mean, Bill Belichick is a coach who knows how to win playoff games. He knows what it's like to go into the playoff atmosphere. He knows what it's like to be a wild card team, and he knows how much work it takes. So he is prepping this team like it's their last straw. Like they are going full force into these next few games. Now, that being said, the Rams are 8-4. They're a really great team. We haven't seen them be this great in a while. Obviously, they went to a Super Bowl a few years back, but nevertheless, it was the most boring Super Bowl ever. Recap of the Super Bowl actually here. But that being said, the Rams are doing really great. And I think the Rams could win this game if the Patriots don't bring their all. I'm going to give it to the Rams.
Yeah, I like all the things you were saying. New England's now in their playoff must-win game because the AFC is getting tight, when it comes to wildcards. Obviously, the division winners are probably already set for now. Maybe Indy and Tennessee will flip between the South. But other than that, obviously, you got Oakland, you got Las Vegas, you got Cleveland, you got Miami. All these good teams and you got Baltimore, you got New England, all these teams. So New England has to play perfect for the most part. Obviously, they get lucky. They get a tiebreaker over Las Vegas, and they get a tiebreaker. They get the tiebreaker over Las Vegas and Baltimore because they beat both. And so I think, New England's have to play well. The Rams have been sneakily good this year. They've been quiet. They've done the little things well. It starts off with the defensive front with Aaron Donald. And I'd love to see him if he can get past the quarterback and get after him and force Newton to throw the balls. Obviously, I don't think this offensive line by New England has been strong by any chance, but New England also has a mobile quarterback, which nobody has seen in a very long time because we've seen Brady for 20 years. And so I think if I like the Rams here, I think they'll be able to get past Cam Newton and get after him and force him to throw some ill-advised passes, especially with this young wide receiver core who stepped up big against the Chargers, and it was a good win. They're also staying in the West Coast since they played in LA against the Chargers last week. So staying in LA is obviously to be very taxing with time change and stuff. So I'm going to give this one to the Rams.
I think, though, the time change won't be a huge deal considering they've been over there for a week now at this point. So it won't be super taxing, but it'll be an interesting game. I think, if anything, it'll be close, maybe. We can hope for a close game, and we'll see what happens. Moving on to these Sunday games, our first 1 o'clock game is the 6-6 Vikings take on the 7-5 Bucks. Now, the Bucks were doing really great, but they've been kind of on the edge lately. They've lost 2 games in a row. Now they've had a bye week. They lost a lot of their power. I don't know really what was happening, if people were just tired or what. They lost a lot of their drive that they had at the beginning of the season, and we saw them really come out and win a lot of games, and it really shocked a lot of people. Even though people knew they had weapons, people were like, nah, it's still the Bucks. Like, I don't know about this. And they came out and they have a 7-5 record. They're pretty great, but I don't know what's been happening the last 2 games. So they really need to step it up. That being said, though, they're coming off of bye week. They've been well rested. They've been practicing. They've been training hard for this next coming game because playoffs are starting soon. And they're playing the Vikings. The Vikings have a 6-6 record. They're just an average team, the exact same record as the Patriots. While they do have Dalvin Cook, that's really it. They have a few other weapons, but they don't have a lot going for them. And I don't think the Vikings are going to win this game. I think the Bucks are going to pull it out because they know that they need those wins.
Yeah, I think both are in the fight for the wild card right now. I think Minnesota has the 7th seed right now if the playoffs are today. And they struggled against Jacksonville. They went to overtime, barely won by a field goal. And now you're going into playing Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks, who also on the same hand also are fighting for a playoff spot. Minnesota, like you said, has Dalvin Cook, and they have, in my opinion, rookie of the year in Justin Jefferson, who's been an emerging star as a wide receiver. Nonetheless, I think Tampa Bay needs this win more than Minnesota does, and I trust Tampa Bay to win a game more than I trust Minnesota.
If it comes down to quarterbacks, I trust Tom Brady way more than I trust Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
The next game is the 6-6 Cardinals play the 5-7 Giants. This is going to be a little bit of an interesting game too, especially because the Giants are coming off of a win that I don't think a lot of people expected by any means, really. That being said, though, the Cardinals have been a really great team. We've talked about them a lot on this show. I didn't know that they were 6-6. They started off a lot stronger than that. I think they've kind of lost it in the last few games. But they have Kyler Murray, who's a really great quarterback, who's pretty unpredictable what he's going to do. If he can't pass the ball, he can easily give it to a running back. And it's so easy for them to get first downs and to score. It doesn't take Kyler Murray long to score at all because you have DeAndre Hopkins on your team too. You're just full of weapons. I genuinely think that the Cardinals are going to win this game, but I feel like it could go either way because both are pretty average teams.
I'm thinking the Giants in this one. I think they're riding high against the win against Seattle, which everyone thought they would roll over and just die, and they played very well. On the flip side, a lot of people are flipping over between, are we just going to say the Cardinals are bad? I don't think they're bad. Like you said, they have Kyler Murray, who's taking better steps. Obviously, let's remember, this is his second year in the NFL. He's not going to be an amazing star. He's not going to be, that team that quarterback's going to lead him to the Super Bowl. I think he will. I think it'll take a couple of years, obviously, with the weapons that you named. I think they'll add on to the weapons, especially in the draft and through free agency. I don't think this year is their year. I think, there's a lot of better teams in the NFC, especially in the AFC. It'll be interesting to see if they make the playoffs. I think the offensive line is hurting. They're also going with injuries. Kyler Murray, like you said, was dealing with a shoulder injury, and it's coming up to him, and that's fine. It's in the beginning of his career. I think with the Giants, they're fighting between first place between them and the Washington football team. And I think in a situation like this, we don't know if Daniel Jones will start again. He had that hamstring injury. Colt McCoy looks pretty good. I think they're going to ride high in this Giants win.
The next game is the 11-1 Chiefs take on the 8-4 Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins have been pretty great this year. I think it was honestly Tua that came in and really changed their whole unit, the way they ran. Because even when the team was playing with Fitzpatrick, I messed up there. Even when they're playing with Fitzpatrick, they didn't have the drive. You saw them, they're coming out and they'd win games, but they'd be like, okay. And you just kind of see them get the job done. And when they lose, they'd be like, okay. But with Tua, it was just a completely different atmosphere. Even the players, just even the defensive line, even when he's not on the field, it's just a completely different atmosphere. You can see them actually driving, wanting to win games. They're genuinely a scary team. Now, that being said, I don't think they hold any contest whatsoever to the Chiefs, because Chiefs are amazing. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have an amazing offensive line. Defense needs some work. I think that might be where the Dolphins get to score a pretty decent amount, but I still think that the Chiefs will win, even though they're coming off of a barely win but from the Broncos, but I'm still going to give it to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't like what you're saying. Both of these teams have high futures, and very very exciting futures in the upcoming years. Everyone's saying who's going to dominate between the Steelers and the Chiefs. Number one, both teams have to make it that far. We can't just assume that both teams are going to make it. And I think Kansas City has better of a chance to make it to the championship game than Pittsburgh does. But everyone's also like domination. I don't see yes, I see them. We've seen them dominate too, but also they haven't dominated on all cylinders of the game. Broncos, they only won by 4 points or 6 points. Buccaneers, they've only won by 3. The Chiefs against the Raiders, they only won by 4. Panthers only won by 4. They're winning they're playing close games. That's exactly what the Steelers are doing. They're winning by close games, but the difference is they're winning more convincingly. It's not like there's there's a little doubt. They're winning convincingly. Patrick Mahomes knows what he's doing. I think on the offensive side of the ball, as great as they are, I think they need to start winning more games with a better point differential. And start blowing out the teams that they need to. Because they're gonna face a good defense. They haven't faced an amazing defense yet. And I think once they face a defense like Pittsburgh, it'll be different. Obviously, it'll be different right now. It's Pittsburgh. It's not the greatest. I do think Pittsburgh will not couldn't exceed the Chiefs if they played each other. I think offensively, we all know who the better team there. I take Pat Mahomes, but that's just now. I'm not saying that's for later. I do think right now the Miami Dolphins are hurting on the defensive side. Their left tackle has gone down. They just don't have the pass rush that they used to. And so I'm taking Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs on this one.
The next game is the 8-4 Titans take on the 1-11 Jaguars. The Jaguars had a chance to win it last week. I actually had hope in them, which I know I probably shouldn't get my hopes up in the Jaguars, but it was coming down to the last minute there. It went to overtime, like we said earlier. It was an interesting game, in all honesty. Obviously, I have been the nicest to Minnesota this year. I've basically said that they sucked, even though I shouldn't, because they have the exact same record as the Patriots. But it was an actually interesting game, way closer than it should have been. It was one of the most entertaining football games this past week, honestly. But that being said, I don't think they hold any contest to the Titans. The Titans have Derrick Henry. Obviously, he didn't have his best week last week, but the Jaguars don't have a great defense to stop them. Obviously, we saw in the Minnesota game, it was a pretty high-scoring game, obviously, and it came down the very last second. So they don't have the defense to stop them. They can just score. And if they don't have the defense, I don't think they have any contest against Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and, the Titans got a little wake-up call, against a really interesting Browns team. That really surprised all of us, and it was at home, too. So it was a little bit of an embarrassing thing. And like you said, the Jaguars are just hurting on both. And that's fine because all the guys are 23 and younger. Everyone's very young on this Jaguars team, and that's fine. You're going to get – they'll be a better team once, as the years go on. But this is a must-win game, especially for if you want to win the division. And so I take the Titans on this one.
The next game is the 3-9 Cowboys take on the 2-9-1 Bengals. This is going to be an awful game. I'm going to say this right now. Both teams are awful. Both teams I don't really look forward to watching to at all because I know that they're most likely going to lose and it's just going to be kind of a blowout. So I honestly think this is either going to be a really high-scoring game because both of them don't really have a great defense or a really low-scoring game because both of them don't have an offense. Obviously, the Cowboys lost this past week. Very sadly, they held up the competition there in the beginning of the Ravens game, but then something after second half that they just went down in the second half, and they held their ground. Honestly, I held hope, which was really bad because I don't like the Cowboys at all, nor do I trust them. But I was like, oh, they could win this. They didn't. They got smoked in the end. The Bengals obviously don't have Joe Burrow. We've talked about this multiple times. They're struggling offensively, struggling defensively. I'm honestly going to give it to the Cowboys. I trust Andy Dalton a little bit more.
Yeah, I was thinking about who should win this game. It's tough. Both of these guys are, both these teams are absolutely terrible. And I like Cincinnati in this game. I'm going to say that right now. And the reason being is, in order to play, in order to put yourself in the best possible chance to win this game, on the defensive side of the ball, is giving up about 20 points. I think that's a good level, a good number that you should give up. Against the Dolphins, a very good Dolphins team, they've given up 19 points. The Giants, they give up 19. Washington, they give up 20. Obviously, Pittsburgh, they gave up 36. But they're not giving up a whole lot of points on the defensive side. And I think on the flip side, if you can give up that point to give your offense a chance to score points, I think they will. And against a struggling front seven of Dallas Cowboys, I think they'll be able to get some points and score. So I like Cincinnati.
The next game is the 4-8 Texans take on the 5-7 Bears. I don't trust the Bears at all. I put my hope in them before, and I do not trust them. I don't have much good to say about them, honestly. Even though they've won 5 games, don't know how really. I don't trust them. And people is like saying that they're really great, and some people are like, oh, they're looking better this year. And I'm like, well, yes, they are. They don't hold the competition to me. I don't trust them actually holding their grounds if they were to play some really great teams. I don't think they could beat those teams. That being said, you're going against Deshaun Watson on the Texans. And while the Texans don't have a lot of offensive weapons, especially with Will Fuller being out, I still think Deshaun has a way better chance of winning this game than the Bears team.
Yeah, I agree with you. Bears started off 5-1, and now they're 5-7. So that's a big thing right there. And that's quarterback play. You started off with Mitchell Trubisky, then you changed to Nick Foles, and you went back to Mitchell Trubisky. It's been crazy. Losing the last couple of games. On the opposite side of the ball, on the other side of the ball, you got Deshaun Watson. Not a bad game. He just made one small mistake, and that's okay. People make mistakes. Obviously, it was a crucial one to lose the game. But I still take Deshaun Watson. He can do incredible stuff with the ball. One of the top QBs in our league. Especially you put him. Obviously, he's hurting with no real wide receiver. Will Fuller got suspended. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins, so it's going to be tough for him. But I think he'll be able to get the job done.
I think he needs to go to a different team because he has a lot of talent that he's hiding under a really bad Texans team.
I think you should go to Pittsburgh once Ben retires.
Patriots. Cam Newton only has a 1-year contract.
You will resign him. Especially if we make the playoffs, you will resign him.
That would be interesting. I think that's a little bit of a stretch for the Patriots right now, but we'll see. After this game, we'll basically know if we're in it or not. The next game is the 4-8 Broncos take on the 4-8 Panthers. Both teams have the exact same record. They're playing to their competition. I'm honestly going to give it to the Broncos. They've had some actually decent wins. They played against the Patriots, and obviously the Patriots haven't been the best this year, but they won that game nevertheless, and they held a really close game against Kansas City, which I think shows something about them. And even though they're lacking quarterbacks, even though they got one quarterback back, right, from COVID. Yeah. They're still lacking offensively. Their defense is actually pretty decent, I would say. I think that they have a better chance of winning this game than the Panthers. I don't really hold any trust in the Panthers at all, but
I'm giving this one to the Panthers. Number one, Christian McCaffrey has a chance to come back today. He just got diagnosed with a quad or a thigh injury.
Yeah.
But it was only tightness, which isn't the worst injury that you could have, but maybe it could just be that day. So hopefully we'll see that back. But I like the Panthers wide receiving core and Teddy Bridgewater the way he's played. He stayed calm under pressure. He's been able to get the job done for the most part. So I'm going to take him there.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey might be playing. It's a questionable. He was supposed to play, and then now this injury. But if he plays, then I'd give it to the Panthers because the Broncos defense can't stop Christian McCaffrey. But at this point, if he's not playing, I'm going to give it to Broncos. The next game is the 0-12 Jets take on the 8-4 Seahawks. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. If the Jets win one game this season, it's going to be here because the Seahawks don't have a defense. We saw this going against the Giants, and the Giants are a pretty average team. We've seen them be better this year than past years, but they're not threatening by any means. And the Seahawks just got crushed by them. And their offense, while they did some stuff, it wasn't the best. I mean, I have Metcalf and Lockett and Chris Carson on my team, and they all did just average. They did decent on offense, but their defense sucks. I thought it was honestly gonna like get better and they're gonna fix some holes as we go, but no. I don't think the Jets are going to win that. That being said, because they have no offensive weapons where the Seahawks are loaded with them. It's really pick your poison there. But nevertheless, if the Seahawks defense can't fix itself this week, I can easily see the Jets winning, considering they almost won against the Raiders this past week.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I have to say about the Seahawks. Number one, Russ is officially out of the MVP race. I don't think there's too many other guys. You could put Aaron Rodgers in there, Patrick Mahomes in there, Kamara in there. You can even argument with Josh Allen the way he played. Maybe Ben, but I don't think he'll win at all. But Russell Wilson's out, and the defense finally caught up with them. You got to make plays on the defensive side. You got to get them off the field. You got to get Russ chances to score, and they didn't do any of that. The Jets, they just find ways to lose, and anything was more evident. I don't know why you blitz every single person that you can and then leave their best wide receiver open on the last play of the game against Vegas. I don't know, but they looked great. The Jets didn't look great except for the last play. They were scoring or getting into the red zone. And so I could easily see the Jets winning this game, but I think Seattle has work to do. I think they'll do enough to get the win against the Jets.
And at this point, too, is if the Jets are just wanting to lose, then they can for sure get Trevor Lawrence, because if they win a game, they're going to be tied with the Jaguars if the Jaguars lose this week and the Jets win. So honestly, that would be interesting, because then they'd be up for a little bit of competition getting Trevor, and God knows the Jaguars need a quarterback as well. Yeah. So they would be okay with getting him. So it's honestly if they're trying to lose or not. The next game is the 8-4 Colts take on the 7-5 Raiders. I actually think this is going to be a pretty interesting game. The Colts, for a while, were the number one defense. I don't think they are anymore, because they've gone pretty downhill on their defense lately. I think they're at least second or third right now. That being said, the Raiders are coming off of a win against the Jets, nevertheless, but it came down to the last minute, which it shouldn't have if you're playing against the Jets. The Raiders are honestly pretty inconsistent. Even though they've won 7 games, they lose to some teams that I'm like, how didn't you win? And then they win games that I'm like, how did you win? And it's so interesting. And with them, I honestly think that they're pretty iffy. I think if the Colts defense really works this week and kind of fixes their holes, I'm going to give it to the Colts.
Yeah, I'm giving this one to the Colts. I think they'll do just enough to play LA. LA is pretty good, but I think the Colts defense is going to be the main difference. I think they moved down. I think they're now second in the league. I think Pittsburgh boosting themselves up to first, even though they lost the game. They put themselves as first. Couple categories, but nonetheless, I like what the Colts defense has been doing. Their pass rush has been there. They're able to drop back into pressure, confuse looks. And I think against a Derek Carr, who's been pretty good, he was able to get the job done a couple of times. I think Colts are still going to do it.
The next game is the 5-7 Washington football team playing the 5-7 49ers, an equal matchup, which I never thought the 49ers and the team with no name would have the exact same record. That's pretty interesting, especially considering the 49ers were in the Super Bowl last year. Just an interesting fact to put out. Obviously, the Washington football team is coming into this game pretty hyped up. They just knocked down the, at time, undefeated Steelers, and now they are because of them. And they've honestly been lacked on this entire season. They've been pretty bad. They're a pretty good team. They obviously have a lot of things that they need to get better on and work on, but I think they should actually, in a few years, they would actually be kind of scary. Get a name first, too. The 49ers are just losing it lately. I think it's just because ever since the season started, they've been with COVID and lots of injuries, with Jimmy Garoppolo being out and George Kittle being out. Obviously, that's a huge toll on them. And Bosa being out. I think Bosa's still out, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge setback for them, considering they're 3 of the key players in the 49ers league. That being said, the 49ers are coming off of a pretty bad loss against the Bills. The Bills are honestly a team to be scary of, and I thought that they're going to win that game. I didn't really have a doubt. Honestly, I'm going to give it to the football team. I'm going to switch it up. I just have a little bit more hope. I think they're going to be hyped up after this week's game, and they're going to continue that fire going into the 49ers game.
I think everyone needs to stop thinking that the football team is bad. Everyone's like, you lost to the football team. Yes, they're good. They're a very good team. The reason why they're 5-7, number one, is they played around at QB. They started Dwayne Haskins, and then they started Kyle Allen. Why did you start those two over experienced Alex Smith? We've seen what happened when they started Alex Smith. He's good. In my opinion, I'm back and forth between comeback player of the year. I'd be happy to see him. I mean, obviously, I want Ben to win that because he's my favorite. He's my fellow Steeler. But I'd respect Alex Smith to win because the things he's come back from, it's just been insane. With his injury. So, I'd be fine with that. On the other side of the ball, the defense is third in the NFL. Maybe even second, one of the two, between Colts and the football team. They're either second, two, or three. I don't remember which one. But they get after the quarterback flat. We've seen what they've done. They've been able to sit back and pressure. And they don't blink, really. When they get into tough situations, they have playmakers that will make plays for you. And I like what they've been doing on both sides of the ball. And so I'm just giving this one to the football team. I think they'll win the division. It'll be interesting. I don't think they may not be the team that goes down in the first round. They might win a playoff game and maybe go somewhere. I don't know.
Honestly, I think if they go somewhere in the playoffs, Alex Smith is 100% getting that. Because the Steelers, we know that they're going to the playoffs at this point, even though it's not clinched yet, unless they majorly fuck up soon. But I'm pretty positive that they're going to be in there. And if they do get a playoff win, I'm classifying him as the comeback player of the year. The next game is the 10-2 Saints take on the 3-8-1 Eagles. There is a lot to say about this game, considering the Saints have kept up their winning streak with their quarterback Drew Brees being out is a huge deal. I always thought, at least last year and the year before, that Drew Brees was honestly their key to success. Honestly, I was proven wrong, obviously, as they have continued to prove games, and they have amazing offensive weapons. Taysom Hill is doing actually a really great job as quarterback, which I never really expected. I kind of thought that was going to be a toss-up going into this game. But they've done a really great job. They started using Kamara again, which is obviously a huge key to their success. That being said, they're going against the 3-8-1 Eagles. Now, the Eagles blatantly suck, and they obviously lost the game past week. And they've removed Wentz from being their starting quarterback, and they're putting in Jalen Hurts. That is the big news of the week. And I have hope in Jalen Hurts. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to win this game by any means. I'm giving it to the Saints 100%. I don't think the Eagles really compare. But the Eagles, when they get down to the fourth quarter, they actually start to put up points. They won't put up points the entire game until the fourth quarter. I don't know if you've noticed that, but go back and watch an Eagles game, and 100%, they'll get at least 20 points in the last fourth quarter. I'm like, where was this the entire time? If they did that the entire time, they'd be an actually decent team. But they don't, and they suck. I think Jalen Hurts will bring a different dynamic to the team, but I still don't think they hold any chance to the Saints.
It'll be interesting to see. We talk about Tyson Hill, and yes, he's good, but he hasn't really played a good defense yet. He's playing this. He played the Falcons, he played the Broncos, and now he's going to play the Eagles. That's a pretty okay defense, not the greatest. Nonetheless, he's got to win games, and that's what they've been doing. The big test will be next weekend when they play the Chiefs. Luckily, in that game is home, and that'll be a really fun game. But I like what Tyson Hill, because he's obviously stepping into Drew Brees' shoes is a big role to fill, but he's taken lightly. He's doing stuff that I wish Ben has been doing. I wish Ben could take notes, but it's not all on him. He's giving the ball off to the running backs. Letting other people make the plays for him. With Michael Thomas, all these guys. So I like what they're doing. I think they're going to get the win. Jalen Hurts, I'm excited to see him. Remember, like I told you, this is Mark's the 7th QB, backup QB for the NFC East to start a game. And there's 6 others with, I think that was McCoy, DiNucci, Dalton, Garrett Gilbert, and then obviously in the football team you got Kyle Allen and Alex Smith. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table. He looked good for a little bit of the time that he played against Green Bay. But I don't think he'll do enough to beat this really good New Orleans Saints team.
And I think what's really interesting that Taysom Hill does is he uses the offensive weapons, but in a completely different way than Drew Brees did it. Now, Drew Brees, his main guy whenever he ran it was Kamara, but Taysom Hill's been going to the other running backs, and they've actually been doing really great, and we haven't seen them. Obviously they switch off between Kamara and other people on their team. I don't know the other running backs off the top of my head, but they switch off, but they've mainly been using their backup running backs, which I think is really interesting. But he brings just a completely different dynamic to the offense, which is actually really interesting watching him see the offensive weapons in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
The next game is the 4-8 Falcons take on the 3-9 Chargers. This is going to be interesting. I honestly think this will be a pretty solid game. The Falcons, while they do have so many great key players on their teams, they haven't been the best at winning games. Obviously, they completely crushed the Raiders 2 weeks back. Didn't see that coming at all. And then they come off of a loss from the Saints. But they're playing against the Chargers, who have 3-9. And while Justin Herbert is great, they're coming off of a week where they didn't score any points whatsoever. And that's going to sting. As a rookie quarterback, that must hurt, having to lose that bad and not even been able to make a touchdown or a field goal or anything. That just, I bet that really hurts his pride, honestly. That being said, the Chargers, while they do have some great offensive weapons, they don't have enough to keep it going against the Falcons. I'm going to give it to the Falcons on this one.
I'm going to give this one to the Falcons as well. I like Matt Ryan. I like what he's been doing. You know, obviously it's tough with the coaching staff's change and everything and all that dynamics. And I think the Chargers are good. I like Justin Herbert. I think he's young, but I think he's got some talent. They're also hurting with injuries. So I think the Falcons have this slight edge in this one.
The next game is the 9-3 Packers take on the 5-7 Lions. The Packers are a really great team. I think people always talk about like the elite teams, but I think they honestly get skimped out on a little bit, even though like they're talked about. But honestly, I think that they're not hyped up enough. They've been done a really great job this year, and they have a great offense and they have a great defense too. And their defense is not something that people talk about often. Honestly, they're a little bit iffy. Some weeks their defense is a little bit worse, but their defense is always pretty good, and they do the job that they need to in order for Aaron Rodgers to go out and keep scoring. I'm going to give it to the Packers on this one. I don't think the Lions hold that much of a chance. I wouldn't really trust Matthew Stafford compared to Aaron Rodgers on this one.
Yeah, I think Matthew Stafford, he struggled against Chicago, and you're looking at this Packers team. There's so many ways you could score with Aaron Jones, Allen Lazard, Devontae Adams. And the defense is getting a little bit better. Obviously, it's been struggling for the past couple of weeks, but it's been a lot better. So I take the Packers in this one.
The Sunday night game is an interesting one that I have a lot to say about. Is the 11-1 Steelers against the 9-3 Bills. This is going to be an interesting game because it will see if the Steelers can play against really great teams and if the Bills can play against really great teams. They have both played pretty average teams, some good teams overall. But, I mean, the Bills are coming off of a win, obviously, against the 49ers, which isn't a huge deal. But the Steelers are coming off of a loss. I think the Steelers have a lot to fix this week going into this game. Now, if they can fix some of those things, great. I think they hold a good chance. But if they play like they did against the Washington football team, I think they're going to get demolished. Josh Allen is a great quarterback, and their offense has been amazing. And that being said, their defense has been pretty great, too. Their defense can stop the other team's offense pretty well, honestly. In the end, I think I'm going to give the Steelers the slight edge on it because I think that they're going to be wanting revenge. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills win it, and I kind of want the Bills to win it because the Bills have a lot of potential, and I want to see them take it somewhere.
Waking up this morning. Obviously, I made a prediction at the beginning of the season who I think is going to win this game. Obviously, predictions will change based off of how the team does. Waking up this morning knowing that we have to film Wednesday warm-up, I'm like, I don't know who's going to win this game. I really don't. You're talking about this offense, and I totally agree with you. Josh Allen deserves to be in that MVP conversation. He's done so much with the Bills, and he's been quiet about it too. He's Stephon Diggs. He got so many weapons. Cole Beasley. On the defensive side of the ball, it plays so perfectly in Pittsburgh's favor. Number one, Pittsburgh needs a run game. They can't run the ball. They've had trouble running the ball. Luckily for the Steelers, they're facing a run defense that's second worst in the NFL. They've given up the second worst amount of yards, and I think that plays in. You get Connor back, and then looking also on the defensive side for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh loves to get after the quarterback. It was hard against Alex Smith because Alex Smith was Ben Roethlisberger type. They got the ball out quickly, and you saw a lot of screen passes that the football team did, and the Steelers couldn't get there because of pass rush, and they converted those long third downs. On the flip side, though, we're facing Josh Allen, who loves to hold the ball. He loves to hold the ball and watch plays develop. How does that play into Pittsburgh's defense? Well, they have one of the best pass rushes, if not the best pass rush in the NFL. Obviously, they lost Bud Dupree, and he's replaced by Alex Highsmith, but you still got T.J. Watt, you still got Cam Hayward, you still got Tyson Alualu. You still got playmakers that will be able to get after the quarterback. They need one more sack to break the all-time leading sack list of consecutive sacks. They're at 69 right now. So this game really falls in the hands of Pittsburgh. It could be Pittsburgh right here. Obviously they got to fix some major things on the offensive side of the ball. I said I'm never gonna pick against the Pittsburgh Steelers until I have to, and I really don't know. I just don't. Steeler Nation's gonna hate me if I pick against Pittsburgh. But I
It
think
has to be done at some point. Pats Nation probably hates me a lot because I said that they suck this season. So,
but I think Pittsburgh is slightly gonna edge the Buffalo Bills here. I mean, this game is such an even game. I think Pittsburgh, hopefully they've gotten humbled from Mike Tomlin. He said they've been humbled a lot and they're learning a lot. Also the injuries are stacked up. We don't know what's going to happen. I think Pittsburgh's going to do just enough to win this game, and it'll be like maybe a 1 or 2 point game, but I think Pittsburgh will barely get this one.
the Monday night game this week is the 7-5 Ravens take on the 9-3 Browns. This is going to be a pretty interesting game as well. The Ravens obviously need some wins because they're in the playoff contender, but the wild card, like we were talking about earlier, is really competitive this year. That being said, the Browns are coming off of an amazing win against the Titans, and the Titans love to run the ball, obviously, and they can pass the ball, but their major key factor to winning is running the ball with Derrick Henry. Now, the Ravens also love to run the ball because they have a running quarterback. Honestly, he's more of a running back than a quarterback. Let's be real. He can put off some amazing throws every once in a while, but then he just runs it or gives it to the running back, and they completely just destroy teams with running it, which is fine. But if you're going against a team that can actually stop the run, you're going to be screwed when it comes down to making those last minute passes. I think Lamar Jackson can make some far passes, but I don't think he can make short passes by any means. I'm honestly going to give it to the Browns. I think that they have just an edge up on the Ravens on this one, and I can see the Ravens just completely folding to them.
I hate this game. I really do, because I don't want to pick these two, because both these teams give me no advantage for the Steelers to win this game. I'd much rather see Baltimore win because the Browns are coming up close, and we need a win, or we need the Browns to lose to get into the playoffs and to win this division. No, I like what you said, but Baker Mayfield has been good on play action passes, and I think we saw a lot of throwing from Lamar Jackson last night. He had a couple throwing touchdowns. But like you said, he also is he's a running back. He's pretty much a running back. I'm giving this one to Baltimore. I think they're slowly getting healthy off that COVID list. That's what screwed them in the past couple of weeks, is being on that COVID list. They're finally getting more guys, more healthy, back into this game, and I think they'll be able to do just enough to pick up against Baker Mayfield. I'm still not ready to accept that he's good yet. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, as much as I've slacked on Baker Mayfield, he did really great this past game, and I think he's a little bit better than I've been saying.
I'm gonna wait. Maybe if they win this game, if they can beat Pittsburgh, maybe we'll talk about that. But I'm not ready yet.
You're just mad because they're in your league, aren't you?
A little bit, but I'm just not ready yet.
Okay. Millan, who is your pick of Week 14?
My lock of the week, obviously, is there's a lot of good locks. I'm giving this one to the Texans. They're playing against Chicago. I like what Deshaun Watson's going to do. I think it'll be a one-man crew there, and I just don't. The struggles are going to continue for the Bears, so I like Deshaun Watson and the Texans.
Okay, as much as I said this team was going to win, and I have trust in them, but they just let me down so easily, I'm still going to go for it. I'm going to say the Falcons. I'm going to live on the edge a little bit. While Justin Herbert's great, I don't think they don't have weapons on their team other than Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. They're pretty maxed out, where Falcons have a lot. And Julio Jones is coming back this week for the Falcons, which is a big thing for them.
True.
Thank you for joining us for Week 14. Join us next week as we recap Week 14 and go into Week 15.